where do we stop reading and where do we start writing? And as we write, we realize that probably we did not read enough. We come up to obstacles in our research work, as and when we do it. So every one of us is familiar with this problem of organizing reading and writing. So I thought I will talk to you about it. First, let me talk about what is meant by research. I know everybody is aware of it, but this discussion on what is meant by research is important for our topic. Research means reading existing literature on a topic. So there are already jigsaw puzzle pieces, existing literature on a topic is already there. You have to make sense of what is there. You have to read what is there, analyze it, make sense of it, and then put in your piece. Your piece is your research project. So like T.S. Eliot said in Tradition and the Individual Talent, your research project is not alone. It should not be looked at in isolation. It is actually part of a tradition. It is part of a whole area of research. So many people have already done research in that area or in related areas. So many people have made theories, written articles and books and dissertations. And your work is related to all that. You are reading existing literature, you're making sense of it, you're analyzing it. Some of it is going into your into your research work, and you are contributing something to it. So you have to read existing literature on a topic, you have to analyze the findings of other scholars, and you have to apply ideas in your own area or topic in an original manner. That is where we fumble, because we are used to copying other people's ideas and taking it as it is and making it our own. The most we usually do is change the language. But even taking an idea from somebody else has to be acknowledged. It is not your idea. Even the idea should be presented in an original manner. Not only the language, but even the thinking, the connection should be original. That is what is meant by research. So research is not something that you sit in your room and do in isolation. You are actually part of a tradition. You are part of a whole area of work. So many people together are working in an area, and you have to position yourself there. You have to identify, okay, this is where my research comes in, my dissertation comes in, this is where I stand. Like that, you have to position yourself. That is what is meant by real original research. And finally, what you do is you write out your findings and conclusions. With a lot of reading that you have done, you have come to conclusions, and you write out your conclusions, and that is called your dissertation. And this dissertation is a record of your research work. All that you have read and thought and analyzed, everything should be there in your dissertation in a very organized manner. And this dissertation will become the study material for other people. Other research projects will be based on our work. So we will still remain part of that tradition, because other people will cite our work, will take inspiration and ideas from our work. These days, it is very important how much other people are quoting from your research paper or book, etc. is very important these days. So we should write our dissertations in such a way that other people will find it useful. So how do we do that? The preliminary reading of existing literature is what you do when you start your research. When we start research, we make a synopsis, we get admission for PhD, and we start our research, right? What do we do then? Before we write the synopsis, we do a preliminary reading of existing literature. Whatever we can find based on our topic, we'll collect those books and articles, we'll read, and this preliminary reading will help us to arrive at our research questions. So what am I looking for in my research project? What are the questions that I am trying to answer? That is meant by our research questions. We should have like 3 to 5 research questions in our dissertation. Even when you're writing a research article, you should be clear about what you're trying to find out. Even when you're writing a research article, it is important to know what you're trying to find out. Those research questions should be framed. So the preliminary reading will help you to identify your research questions. After you identify your research questions, you really start reading. Then you understand that it is not easy. because this literature review, all the books and articles that you have collected are all very complicated, and you don't know how one connect, like jigsaw puzzle. All the pieces are lying here and there. You don't know which goes where. It is very difficult at the beginning. But as you identify piece after piece, as you unravel the entangled thread and release it, it becomes clearer and clearer. In the beginning of your research, there will be utter confusion. It is normal. Everybody will be confused. But as we proceed with research, it becomes better and better, and it becomes clearer and clearer. The more clear you are in your thinking, the more connected you are in your ideas and thoughts, the better your dissertation will be. So that clarity is very important, and clarity comes only from hard work, from reading and application and cross connection and research. But gradually, every day itself, it is going to get better only. So that is what I meant by that picture. Now, first, when you read for your dissertation, you have to understand your research area first. What am I researching on? My topic, my area. How do you understand your research area? By identifying subsections. Within one main area, there will be a lot of different subsections, small branches of this big topic. You have to identify, you have to actually write down these subsections separately and deal with them separately. And some of these subsections will go into one chapter, some will go into another chapter. So whatever you are identifying as subsections and reading up on subsections will eventually go into your dissertation. So identify the subsections. Let us take the example. I am taking one research topic as an example, one area as an example. The depiction of bandits in literature of the East. We talk about Western literature a lot. Now, in Eastern literature, that means Arabic literature, that is literature of the Middle East, or literature of China, Japan, Singapore, literature of India, Pakistan, Southeast Asian countries. In all these Eastern literary works, how are bandits depicted? This is a broad area. This is not a title. In this area, you can form your own title. You can identify primary sources. You don't have to deal with all literatures of the East at once. You can identify some literatures, some primary sources, and look at some aspects of the depiction of bandits. You can't deal with everything, so look at some aspects only, and then based on that, you frame a title, isn't it? So within this broad area called bandits in Eastern literature, how are we going to identify subsections? When you do research, you should always be writing. You should obviously be using the internet and computer a lot. You should be organizing everything in files, in Word and Excel sheet and all that. But also traditional paper and pen also will help us think. So you can write something like this. So I was researching on bandits in Eastern literature. And what is Eastern literature? I thought, and I wrote Arabic is there, Chinese is there, other. I will have to read and find out. Other is there, and all this can be related to the depiction of bandits in Russian literature. There are lots of bandits in Russian literature also. Russian, African, Mexican, and other Latin American, Australian. Australian people were bandits and robbers when they were exiled. The white people of Australia were originally bandits and robbers and criminals. So it is said in a very funny way that while America was founded by the Pilgrim Fathers, Australia was founded by prodigal sons. Funny view at history. Don't look at it in a racist way. Today, Australians are normal people. Not that criminals are not normal people. They are also people. They are also human beings. So when you work on bandits in literature, you have to realize that bandits are bad people. Like that, you can't think. You have to think from their perspective. You have to think from all angles. And even though your main area is Arabic, Chinese, and Eastern literature, you have to look at how bandits are depicted in all these other literatures also, because insights from all this reading will be greatly influential in understanding your area. So all these related areas are also very important. And then as I was thinking, what will I write? What are the subtopics? I realized that bandits can be connected to depiction of peasants, because bandits are usually lower class people. They are usually peasants. So in India, we have Maoists and Naxalites. They are terrorists. They are killing people, but they are originally peasants. So what is the relationship of bandits with peasant culture? How can you relate them to other outlaws and terrorists and robbers and highwaymen and people like that? How can you relate them to narratives of rebels, political rebels, for example? And in general, bandits are usually considered very heroic. Think of Robin Hood. Robin Hood is a very famous bandit from the West. In Kerala, we had a bandit called Kayamkulam Kochuni. These Robin Hood, Kayamkulam Kochuni, etc., were people who actually robbed the rich people and took money from the poor people. So heroism is also related to this. Even though I'm talking about only one topic here, remember, whatever topic you work on, whether it is proper literature or ecological studies or studies of history or gender or probably cultural studies, or film studies, whatever it is, you should identify subsections like this. So from your main topics, think again and identify related subtopics like this. And then read up on all this. There are sociological theories in all these areas. You have to know all these areas a little bit at least. Always remember, wild reading is not necessary. As you read, you should organize and you should understand, okay, this is very important, this is less important, this is unimportant as of now. Like that, you should categorize your reading. Then it will be manageable. Otherwise, it will be complete confusion later if you don't organize. And then other subsections are, when you talk about bandits in literature, you can think about how is it related to colonialism, how is it related to 19th century studies. See, I am not sitting in one chair and thinking out all this. I am searching. When I search online, from article titles, from book titles, etc., not only titles, from abstracts, from articles that I read, etc., I get these words. When I started my research, I was not aware that bandits are related to colonialism. But then somebody has already written articles about it. So I take the keyword and write it. It can be related to colonialism. It can be related to 19th century studies. 19th century studies is very important these days. In Indian writing in English, today we talk about English in India. What does that mean? It means 19th century studies of India. So this is very important in academia these days, 19th century studies, because that is related to idea of modernity. How we are today is related to how we were in the 19th century, right? So bandits, in the context of bandits also, you can think like that. Relate to history. For everything, you should look at the development of the discipline. How it was in the Renaissance period and later how it developed, now how it is, and what are all the related areas in all these historical periods. History is very important, and based on history, you should have a theoretical approach. Bandits are also related to folk culture. When I study cultural studies, when I read cultural studies, I realize, oh, the ideas from counterculture or subculture can also be related to bandits. So there I get other cross connections like that. And then when I read about bandits in literature, when I browse, everywhere one name is coming. One important theorist is coming. Like that important theorist we have to identify. That name is Eric Hobsbawm. Eric Hobsbawm has written a book called Bandits, and he has talked about the theory of social banditry. So from all this reading, I get theoretical ideas and concepts like that. And then I have to again Google search and read extra on that. So concept of social banditry, what does that mean? It means that bandits are not fully bad people. They are also rebels, and they are also related to political subversion. So that theory is there. So that theory I'm connecting. And then as I think more about it, I realize that issues of class, social class is there, gender is there, because many times in India we have bandit queen, Phulan Devi, and gender, violence, rape, these are all related. And when I talk about bandits like that, I remember Mahashweta Devi's breast stories, where we have the story Draupadi, where she's not a bandit, but she is a tribal insurgent. She is a militant, tribal militant. So militancy, insurgency can also be related to bandits. and studies in insurgency might give you ideas on the depiction of bandits. Did you understand? Bandit is like this topic I'm taking like an objective correlative. This is an example. This is a sample. When you do your research like this, in this manner, you should identify all the related subsections. Topic of bandits can be related to ethnicity or land issues, dispossession, and social inclusion, exclusion. So I was searching in Google. When I did Google search, on top it comes scholarly articles, and then I get redirected to Google Scholar. And in Google Scholar, I will be able to get a lot of articles, research articles, very high standard research articles. Do not just keep reading blogs and minor material. Go and read the research articles. Sometimes we find that some articles we don't understand at all. It doesn't matter. You don't have to understand. You understand what you can understand. But don't just ignore such articles. Even the difficult articles you keep, because later you might be able to understand after you do some studying. So categorize it. Okay, difficult articles for later. Articles to be studied now. Articles to be read in the second level for chapter 2, chapter 3, like that. So all these topics I wrote down in my book. And then I realized that bandits are very deeply connected to history. When I thought about Robin Hood, I wrote myth also. The myth of the bandit. Phulan Devi is a myth. So I can look at Roland Barthes and how myths, contemporary myths are created. What are the implications? Some of those ideas and theories I can apply in my research. So every research project has many ideas, many theoretical ideas coming together. Even if you take one theoretical idea as the main idea, whenever you critically read a book or a text, you will be applying many theoretical ideas. So do not shut your eyes to it. That is not my theory. I don't want to use that theory. Don't think like that. Especially at the beginning of your research, in the first year and second year, you should read widely. You should collect everything possible related to your research in this manner. So I wrote down history, myth, film, web series. There are so many web series also these days. Even though web series and films are not your primary sources sometimes, you should still watch the films and web series because they will give you new ideas. They will give you new perceptions. And there's a whole area called crime studies, how criminals are depicted, what is the view regarding crime that literary theory has, what are the various theories about crime. Related to that also, you can find material on this topic. So I wrote down all the subsections like this. Did you understand? Whatever your topic is, it is possible to write like this. I'm just giving an example. And after you identify the subsections, you have to keep a separate reading list for every subsection. All these subsections that I talked about just now, let us look at it once again. We talked about Arabic, Chinese, then we talked about all the other literatures, then we talked about peasants, outlaws, concept of hero, history, colonialism and such things, then class, gender, ethnicity we talked about. All these should have different bibliographies. You should create separate reading list for all these, and you will come across names in this topic. You will come across names like Eric Hobsbawm. You will come across lots of articles by different authors. You will also come across creative writing and films and novels also. All that you should categorize. Okay, under this, I will watch this or read this. Like that, you should categorize. Some of the books that I found in this area, always look up Google Images also. Sometimes even the book cover might give you a very good idea. So Eric Hobsbawm's Bandits, one book is there. I told you that already. Here they talk about Wild East, Eastern bandits. So that immediately clicks in my mind. Wild West, I have heard in America. Wild West, cowboy culture, frontier literature, etc. Pioneer literature, etc. Wild East, this book is saying. So immediately I should also spend some few days reading on Wild West and bandits, Wild West and crime. Like that, Google search and find material, because whatever is written about the Wild West might give you insights about your topic, the Wild East. So from this book cover or CD cover or whatever, I got an idea. From this phrase only. And then Stephen Becker has written famous new best-selling author, it seems, The Chinese Bandit, the Far East trilogy. So that reminds me, there must be lots of popular fiction. Popular fiction will be there depicting bandits. And I have seen movies also like that. So how do I differentiate between history, high literature, then films, then popular fiction, video games? So many categories are there. So I have to identify all these categories and probably think about all that and read about it. There is a book on the Mexican-American bandits, bad men, bandits, and folk heroes. When I read Bad Men, again, I'm remembering in Western movies, Westerns is a genre in movies. In Westerns movies, there is a famous movie, Good, Bad, and Ugly. So what is this concept of bad? What is this concept of bad and bad men, bad boy, etc.? That in relation to culture, in relation to masculinity, in relation to crime, in relation to heroism. Like that, one theory is emerging there. So identify from that area the important authors' works, and I'm sure it will actually go into a whole chapter, this area of the concept of bad boy, bad men, and how is it related to folk heroism, crime, etc. Can be even one whole chapter in your dissertation. So look up Google Images, use Google Scholar, and get additional information like this. We were talking about reading separately for every section. Now, when you read, you have to also keep separate notes for every subsection. Every subsection should have separate notes. You should keep separate notes. Earlier, we were using notepads and note cards. Cards were there. Today, you don't need all that. In your mobile phone itself, there are so many apps possible for keeping notes, etc. There are so many apps that you can use in your mobile phone or laptop. Sometimes you could even give an audio message to yourself, safely organize all this detail in the form of notes. For every subsection, there should be separate notes. While I was researching on bandits, I came across Eric Hobsbawm's ideas. I wrote them down 1, 2, 3 separately. And then I also identified other theories that I can read on. I wrote their names also. I categorized them. Don't just randomly write. You should always categorize and plan. That will help you. And then second category I thought about is films depicting bandits. So I identified 2, 3 films and I read about them. And from the film reviews and articles based on these films, I got some key ideas, which also I wrote down. And then the next category is the concept of heroism, folk culture, etc. There also I wrote down the points. Like this, everything that you read should go into some area. Separate file should be there, either in your computer or in your brain or on your desk. Separate files you should organize in these notes. Did you understand? And then sometimes when you read about heroism, you are also relating it to something like masculinity. So when you read about one thing, you can relate it to another thing. And always give numbers. If you're writing physically on a paper, give number, give coding, give some means of organizing it. If you are using a laptop, every different section should be in a different file. Please learn to use Google Docs, because wherever you are, I know Dilip Bharat sir has given enough and more exposure to all that to you. Wherever you are, you'll be able to use Google Docs in your phone or laptop or everywhere. So organize it in Google Docs, otherwise it will get lost. In your computer also, so many folders and drives are there, it will get lost. If it is in Google Docs, you will never lose it. So use it and organize it. And after you have made notes, and while you are reading, your brain should start framing questions. All the time you should be questioning, framing questions, because these questions will guide you. These questions will help you to guide yourself in reading and finding the answers. Each question's answer will be one paragraph in your chapter. So it is a very practical way. Keep on asking questions so that these questions can be answered, and that answer will become your chapter. So one question I asked myself is, how is banditry related to social surveillance and control? Because bandits are always controlled by the state. It is the ordinary people, the peasants, who praise them as heroes. The state will always control them and kill them, etc. So how is banditry related to control and surveillance, law and order maintenance, issues of national security, etc.? So you might have to talk about areas or theories totally that seem unrelated to your topic. You might have to talk about surveillance and security. You never thought that is part of banditry, but that is also obviously part of banditry. So such questions you should raise in your mind. Another question I asked myself is, in what ways does banditry intersect with issues of social inclusionism? I mentioned it already. Subalternity, political rebellion, and cultural subversion. These days, the nature of research is changing a lot. We are becoming more and more sociological. Everything in English departments is becoming touched by cultural studies, right? And the cultural studies and sociology have become very main topics. Philosophy also, and anthropology and ethnography, such things also. So you have to explore banditry or whatever your topic is. It can be education, your topic can be gender-based, your topic can be media-based, your topic can be environment-based, your topic can be, say, traditional literature, anything, whatever it is. There is some cultural theory that is applicable in your topic, some sociological theory. You have to bring in those ideas. So in what ways does banditry intersect with social inclusionist theories, theories of subalternity, political rebellion, cultural subversion, etc.? And how is the subculture of banditry? Of course, it is a controversial idea. Whether banditry is a subculture or not is a controversial idea. Even when you say something, you should also raise questions against it. That is how we do theory and research, right? So how is the subculture of banditry different in various national cultures? That means, how are the bandits of China different from the bandits of Africa or the Middle East or India or some other place? So the intersection between bandits culture and national culture, and also how are they different in various historical contexts. Like that, expand your thinking, look at history, what are the changes that happened, spatially, temporally, what are the changes, and apply it. Did you understand? So while reading one article or book, what do? You write a brief summary of arguments and raise questions. You have to write a brief summary of what is there in the book, a summary of arguments, and you have to raise questions. For example, I am reading this article. I am taking this article as an example based on my topic, of course. The Peasant and the Brigand, Social Banditry Reconsidered by Anton Bloch. I don't know him. He is from University of Amsterdam. For the first time I'm hearing now, and I'm reading this article. Looks like a good article. And about a decade ago, Hobsbawm presented an interesting argument on a markedly little-known subject, for which he coined the term social banditry. So in this article also, Eric Hobsbawm is quoted at the beginning itself. He is certainly the authority. So the question is raised in your mind. What is the question? What is Eric Hobsbawm's argument? You have to look up Hobsbawm's books, Primitive Rebels and Bandits. You don't have to search far and wide. It is given here itself in the second paragraph. Primitive Rebels and Bandits are two books by Hobsbawm. Definitely get hold of them and read them if you're working on this topic. And then you have to look up concepts of social banditry, social brigandage. Now you're wondering, what is that? Don't worry, that is given here. Social brigandage. So like that, when you read articles, from there, you will get names, you will get concepts, you will get arguments, and then you read on. And here he talks about social protest. Twice he talks about social protest movements. See, social protest you see here. Immediately the question comes in your mind. What are the sociological theories related to different kinds of protest? Social protest will also be theorized. There will be theories related to that. There will be peaceful protest, violent protest, non-violent protest. There will be, protest of upper class people, protest of educated people. But how will it be different from protest of lower class people? Then I'm thinking of Antonio Gramsci, organic intellectual, so many related ideas. So you have to explore all the sociological theories related to concepts and terms that you come across like this in articles. In general, if you look at it like that, what are the theories related to social perception? What is said here? Let me read, then you'll understand. Social bandits are robbers of a special kind, for they are not considered as simple criminals by public opinion. The general public do not consider them simply as criminals. They are persons whom the state regards as outlaws, but who remain within the bounds of the moral order of the peasant community. The morality of the state is different from the morality of the peasant community. And the peasants regard them. I'm thinking of the web series Money Heist. In Money Heist, everybody must have watched it. It was #1 in India in Netflix. It is a web series about how a group of people are robbing a bank, and the people support it. People love them. They support it. They actually regard them as rebels and revolutionaries. They are changing the social system, they think. Now, that is very surprising. So, what are the theories related to social perception or cultural representation of outlaws, criminals, terrorists, prostitutes, and all other communities or individuals meeting with social exclusion as against the perceptions of the state? So there are two things at work here: the perceptions of the state, the perceptions of ordinary people, and this is clashing. In the case of all these outcast people, how is the perception of the state clashing with the perception of ordinary people? That is a whole area in sociology that you are getting from this article. So when you read an article, don't just read it like, the Bible. You are just mugging it up and learning from it. Not like that. Think about it. Think against it if you want. Criticize and critique it. Analyze it, so that you will get a lot of related areas like this. And then later on, you come here and the social bandits do not go, the program of the social bandits, indeed, if social bandits have any program, does not go beyond the restoration of the traditional order. So this Anton Block is talking about how the bandits stand for tradition and the people whom they loot probably stand for modernity. The people whom they loot are modern people, rich people. The bandits are more like peasants. They are traditional. So this opens up a whole new area. Look up cultural or sociological theories related to tradition versus modernity. Definitely when you talk about banditry, you have to talk about tradition versus modernity. You have to talk about urban versus rural. You have to talk about theories of social organization and leadership. You have to talk about peasant culture. You have to talk about theories of social exploitation. So all these theories are already there. You just have to make new combinations of these theories and apply it in your topic. And here he's talking about social brigandage that can be connected here. So this is an example of how you take up a research paper, and as you read and understand, you also make notes like this, you think like this, and all these questions in your mind, when they are answered, will actually form your dissertation, a lion's share of your dissertation. This is what you do when you're reading one article or book. And as you are reading studies done by previous scholars like this, in other words, as you're reading articles, and books, questions should be raised in your mind. How is this article or study related to my area of research? Always, don't just forget your research. Always remember to think about how this is intersecting with my area. How can I relate these ideas to my area? What is this study about? A summary of the article should be there in your mind. You should be able to understand the summary of the article, not only every single line and argument, but also the macro view or summary. What is the underlying argument? What is he trying to argue, this author? What is the methodology used by this author in this study? How can I adapt that methodology? Can I use the methodology exactly like that? Is he using quantitative methodology or qualitative methods or a combination? Is he using content analysis of text or some other method? So like this, you learn methodology as you read. Are there words or terms used in the study that I can use? I can borrow terms from the study. I can borrow concepts from the study. Why? To narrow or broaden the parameters of my research for more information. Using the terms that this author has used, I will be able to narrow down my research or broaden my research. So how can I use this article in my work? That question should constantly be used in our mind. Usually, ordinary researchers, what do? They collect articles, they take key ideas from the article, they take paragraphs from the article or summarize the article. And exactly like that, they write in their dissertation. But it should be a critical, review of the article in the context of your work that you should be doing. And I'm just reminding you to do that by raising these questions while you read. Now, how do you find the appropriate articles or the appropriate reading material? That is a very important problem. Locate the books that are cited in the bibliographies of other related studies. When you look up a lot of other related studies, do not ignore the bibliography. When you read somebody else's article, look at the bibliography and try to locate those books in the bibliography. Sometimes you can get them in Google Books. Sometimes you can just buy them in Flipkart or Amazon. Sometimes you'll find them in libraries. So identify the most important books from bibliographies. Use Google Scholar. It is not enough to just Google search. We have to use Google Scholar for scholarly articles. Use Google search with keywords. Not only at the beginning of your research, you have to search for reading material throughout the project. Throughout your project, you should be Google searching with new keywords. As you read, you will get new keywords. You should go on finding more and more reading material. And very importantly, do not just collect truckloads of material. You should organize the material according to the themes. Okay, I have these themes coming up in my research. So according to themes, you can organize the reading material, or according to the theories related to social exclusion. Okay, these articles and books. Theories related to gender. Okay, these articles and books. Theories related to class. These articles and books, like that. So organize material according to themes, theories, your own chapters. Chapter 1 ke liye, these articles. For chapter 2, these articles. And also relevance. Some are very important. Some are less important. Some are not at all important. So I would say make codes for all this. For each theme, make a code, short form or something. For theories, also make a code. For chapters, also make a code. And every article should be saved with that code as the file name. So that when you look for chapter 1 material, you only have to look for C1. When I organize, I put C1 for chapter 1. Right? C2 for chapter 2. And for themes, I will put, don't forget the code. You have to make a list of the abbreviations and save it somewhere so that you can, okay, CN means this, TP means the other. Like that, you should make codes and put it as file name and organize it. So that very soon, okay, these materials will go into chapter 1. These materials will go into this article. Like that, you can identify. When you collect material, sometimes there will be gaps about some area or some topic. Nothing is there. You didn't find any material. So find the gaps in the collected material and search for appropriate content in that area. You have to find the gaps and fill the gaps also. What are some of the online tools that you can use? When you look up a book, just don't go into the book directly. Always look at the table of contents and index. The table of contents will help you understand which chapter to read probably. Sometimes don't skip the introduction. The introduction will give you a lot of material. And the index will help you to find exactly what you want. You can save a lot of time like that. because all books, like Bacon said, need not be read fully. Some books are only for reference. Some books are to be read cover to cover, right? So you should categorize books and articles like that. Some books need not be read completely for research. So use table of contents and index, and find in page. That is a tool that you have in Google Chrome. When you're using Google Chrome, on the right side menu, you see find. And for example, there is an article on social exclusion in general. Out of that, search for, within that article, search for bandits or outlaws or terrorists or robbers or highwaymen, and read about what is said in that area. So that will help you identify whether this is a good article or useful article. Find in page option helps you to search on the basis of keywords. You can put in the keyword and find that area. I hope you know that already, I suppose. Then bookmark is an option that you have in Kindle. In many software programs, you can bookmark. Not just the physical bookmark, but also the online bookmark, which will help you to identify an article or passage later. If anything is available in Kindle, please use it in Kindle, because Kindle is an absolutely wonderful resource for reading. It helps you to organize, highlight, and mark and make comments. It is a wonderful resource. So you should, as much as possible, use Kindle. There you can bookmark, insert comment. When you're reading a page or paragraph, don't just read and keep it, because later on you will forget it. Immediately, then and there, you should insert a comment where you write down the summary of that passage, or your feelings about the passage, the questions that came to your mind when you read that passage. So insert comment will help you to note your observations and to cross connect. When you read one page, you can insert a comment there. In that other book, that other chapter is related to this, read that also. Like that, you can insert a comment there. Cross connection, that is what I mean by cross connection. Last point was hyperlink. Hyperlink means when you are writing in Word, when you are using online file to write, always when you write a paragraph in your dissertation, hyperlink it to that original article then and there, so that later when you edit or revise, you can read it again and connect it. You should use the hyperlink option. When you submit your dissertation, you can remove the hyperlink. But when you are writing this hyperlink, you can save the online resource there itself. So to write out your arguments and link it to relevant online resource, you should paste the URL as hyperlink there itself. When you do blogs also, you should do that. In internet, when you do blogs, etc., as part of research these days, it is not only enough to write a dissertation. You have to be in social media, you have to write blogs, you have to connect with people, share. You have to make your presence felt online. That is also a kind of writing. It is not only dissertation. So when you write blogs, this hyperlinking is very important for making your online presence felt. And also when you write CVs and submit CVs as part of your research, etc., you can add the link to your blogs and link to your website or whatever good writing, academic work you've done, etc., in your CV. So hyperlink is a very, very important thing that we should use. Now, I was talking about reading one article. How do you read many articles and books? Suppose I have read many articles. I have a whole set of articles here and books here related to my research. I have read them all. Now, what do? I take my book and write my main ideas. Don't just randomly write main ideas. At every point, remember to organize. So I have organized it into main point 1, second point 2, point 3, like that. 1, 2, 3, I organized. And within each sub point, there will be, I might want to give examples. I might want to give themes. Theme 1, I might want to give related ideas. So organize this as sub points also. While I am organizing all the main points and sub points in this manner, a lot of thoughts come to your mind. I want to a lot of questions come to your mind. I want to do extra work regarding all that. Note that down also. My thoughts. You should write your questions that are raised in your mind. What are you trying to disprove? What are you trying to prove? All these things you should make a note of as you organize your reading. So after you read one article, you should write. After you read 5 articles also, you should write. organizing all this all the time. Keep organizing and reflecting on what you have read. That is what I mean. Now, organizing literature review. What other research has been conducted in relation to my topic, and what are the main ideas that have emerged? When you organize reading, you have read many articles, that becomes your literature review, and you have to ask yourself this question. What other research has been conducted? What is already known about my topic, and what remains to be discovered? Is there something left to be discovered? In what ways can I organize the most important past findings about my research problem? Because the way you organize your reading in your literature review chapter is also a sign of brilliance. How you organize your reading, instead of just saying everything in a chronological manner, you can organize it in other ways also. Is there any prior research that is unique and groundbreaking? Is there any research that marked a turning point in the history of my discipline? Like that, you are developing a history of your discipline also while you do literature review. How can I briefly enumerate the past developments or changes in perception related to my topic? That means it will become a history of my topic. It can be your chapter 1 sometimes. Even if it doesn't all of it go into your chapter, that history is necessary for you to be an expert in that area. For you to be able to write a dissertation, that kind of historical understanding is necessary. How can I critique the existing research? As I told you, don't just write a summary of existing research. You should critique it. You should question it. You should point out the weaknesses in existing research also. What are the studies I could use as a model for designing and organizing my own study? For my study, whose methodology can I employ? What can I learn from other studies? Like that. All these questions, if you raise in your mind, it will help you to write an excellent literature review chapter. And while you do this, you get your methodology correct. Did the previous studies use qualitative methods? Qualitative means based on interviews, observations, content analysis, etc. Or did they use quantitative methods? That means statistical analysis, qualitative and quantitative, I'm sure. Or did they use a mixed methods approach? Think out of the box. You don't have to do what everybody else did. You can also do something original and different, which I have seen a lot of you do in your department already. I have seen a lot of people doing surveys and all that. So use it in your research project and develop your unique methodology. And you should think about what was the type of data used by those other researchers. Can I use the same kind of data? Should I find more data, other data? When I made this PowerPoint presentation, actually, I was going through all this. What should be my methodology? What should I do? How should I speak about it? Like doing a research project, I learned from what other people have said about research, obviously. I Google searched. I've read from other resources. I also thought I raised my own questions. I put it in a new way. I thought there should be pictures. I thought the jigsaw puzzle picture is very important. I thought it should not be too academic because it is afternoon and you are also already bothered by research. So I thought I should make it different. It should not be like anybody else's presentation. It should be different, I thought. So like that is what a researcher should think. My topic should be dealt with in a different way. That originality matters a lot when you develop your methodology also. Could this method of analysis be repeated from the previous researchers, or should I change it? Is enough information or data available for my study? Should I get new data to understand my problem? Like that, you should ask questions. When you look at banditry, let us go back to banditry. When you look at banditry, first and foremost, there are bandits in history. So you're looking at historical data and how historical data is presented in text. There are actual texts like a Bandit Queen movie. How did it present the historical information on Poolan Devi's life and work, etc. So when you look at historical data on bandits in Eastern literature, obviously you have to look up history of the Middle East, history of the Far East, and also related areas like Latin America, Russia, etc. Then you should also, based on historical data, you should also look at banditry, the concept and theory of banditry, where Eric Hobsbawm, etc. will come. Then you have to talk about state control. Probably you will read about repressive state apparatuses. You will talk about panopticon. You will talk about so many theories related to state control. Then you may also look at personal narratives of bandits as well as victims. Personal narratives are also historical data. We regard them as historical data today. Sometimes bandits might have written their story. Sometimes victims must have written their story. Sometimes police officers might have written all that. You might also want to read on related areas like terrorism, other forms of criminality, countercultures, prisons, etc. Again, in historical data, you might want to read on 19th century. You might want to read on history of feudalism in this regard, history of colonialism, history of Naxalitism, and history of land and dispossession and movements against it, insurgency related to this. So all this will be the way in which you read on history related to your topic. But history is not the only thing. You also have to think of thematic orientations across different media, like novels, like films, web series, video games, etc. that we mentioned before. When you look at different media, what are the thematic orientations? You talk about social class and nation. You talk about social exclusion. You talk about crime and resistance. I know I am repeating, but first I mentioned all this because that was the first impression that you got. You randomly noted down. Now you're reading about it in a very systematic manner. And now these will become your chapters. Some of this will become first and second chapter. This will become second and third and fourth chapter. Did you understand? And modernity studies, peasant and folk culture studies, they're all related. Sometimes you might want to relate it to contemporary events. Even if you're working on 19th century, you might still want to relate it to some contemporary events. Whatever you work on, you can't avoid knowing about your culture and your present time. That is very important. At least in the conclusion chapter, you can bring that in. So theories and changing perceptions of crime today. Money Heist is the example. Why are many movies and web series valorizing crime these days? They support crime in some ways. We have a lot of movies in Malayalam where people do some criminal thing and get away with it because they are not actually criminals. They are middle class people, ordinary people, but they happen to do some criminal thing, but they escape at the end. Like that, movies are there. What does this show? That question raised in my mind might reflect on banditry in an indirect manner. Then theories of masculinity, heroism, justice. Justice is often problematized in texts based on banditry. And examples of movies, web series, video games, etc. So like this, you organize your reading and writing. And then you come to chapter divisions. I'm not going into chapter divisions in detail. I'm not going into the writing of the dissertation. That is dealt with separately as academic writing. I am only telling you how to organize your reading and writing. We are coming to the end of this session. Broadly, always start broad and then narrow down. Chapter divisions are like this. There should be introduction, of course. Then there should be literature review of existing research. A chapter where sometimes in India, we do away with this chapter. Literature review can be incorporated into the analysis chapter also. But sometimes it is good to write literature review separately because in this chapter, you will be giving a history of the discipline. The bandit literature or bandit culture, about that, whatever has been written, you will be giving in this chapter critically. That will be a very wonderful chapter, useful for future research. Then, this is the core chapters, analysis and findings. This is where you analyze your primary sources. Last chapter is usually results and conclusion, and it will be followed by a bibliography or works cited. Now, the introductory chapter might be a historical overview of the topic. Literature review should be a critical overview. You're questioning it. This can be historical. This is critique or critical. Analysis and findings can be further subdivided into many chapters. Usually, there are 3 core chapters. It is normal to have 3 core chapters. And results and conclusion can point to further research by raising questions. You can provide your conclusions and also provide directions for future research. Bibliography should follow the accepted style sheet. There is MLA format, MLA style sheet. For some universities and subjects or disciplines, there is APA style sheet, Chicago style sheet, etc. You should know your style sheet thoroughly, and bibliography should follow it. So lastly, what are the best writing habits? I have put one picture here saying, write without fear and edit without mercy. When you write, just write whatever you want. Some of it might be rubbish. Some of it might not be good at all. But when you write as much as you can. Later you can edit it out. Later you can cut it out. Sometimes chapters or whole paragraphs and pages will have to be taken out of your dissertation. But don't throw it away. Those can become blogs or articles, etc. later. So write regularly. If you write once in a blue moon, every one day in a month you will write, you will not be a good writer. To be a good writer, you have to write every day if possible, at least a paragraph, or every 1 or 2 days. Write regularly. That is very important. And as you write, you should read. And as you read, you should write. Read as you write and write as you read. Don't separate the two. Don't think I will finish reading and then only I will start writing. It doesn't work like that. Write notes on everything you read. Even if it is something unimportant, even then make notes on it and put it away somewhere. There can be like notepads like this. This is also very handy because so many notepads will be there like this on different areas. This is very handy because, you know, it is physical. It is good. At the same time, on your mobile phone also, you should have apps where you are able to open your mobile phone and take the notes that you have made and read it. You can make PowerPoint presentations if you want. In some way or the other, in a very organized manner, write notes. Organize your notes under chapter heads from the beginning itself. Don't wait till the end. After 3-4 years of reading, I will start writing. Don't think from the beginning. Okay, this will go into first chapter. This will go into second chapter. Like that, you should think. Keep bibliographic details and citations correct and up to date. Many people do the mistake of taking quotations for the first 2-3 years. And at the end, when they are writing the dissertation, they are searching for page numbers. They are searching for publication details. It should not be like that. From the beginning, you should be up to date with that. Read your own writing at a later time. After you have written something, after a few days, you should read it again, because then you will be able to edit it. Your ideas will change. Your new reading will change your old ideas. So keep reading what you have written and rewrite it, but don't waste a lot of time over it. Manage your time. That is very important. So, and keep editing it. Only after your editing is over several times should you give it to somebody else. Even before you submit the first draft of your writing to your supervisor, you should have edited it several times. And if you start from the beginning of your research project to write, it is possible. So that is about this presentation. I hope you enjoyed and I found it and that you found it useful. Thank you very much. Now I'm open to questions.
Thanks a lot. It was the slides were very interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was very well prepared. Was it PowerPoint or?
I'm using my MacBook. It is Keynote.
Okay, one from Mac.
One thing I wanted to say in the paper, in the talk was, spend money and buy the best hardware. One thing that changed my life as a researcher and as a teacher is that I bought a MacBook, because it makes so many things easy. So research on the hardware from the beginning of your PhD and buy the best resources, because shall I tell you the truth? I did not even think about what I'm going to speak today until this morning. I know it is in my mind, but I did not prepare it, because I knew it will come out well in the morning. I got up early, sat down, and I made it only today. I was able to do it with such perfection because it's a MacBook. I suppose Apple should give me some commission for this, but I really, really recommend you to buy the best hardware, because it really matters.
No, but it was very good because what you wanted to say, you also proved by showing some of the slides which are prepared in a similar way. So the process of doing a research, you have to take footnotes or margin notes, or you are reading something, you have to make an arrow and you have to write a lot many things so that you were able to display. So those who are watching the thing, you will come to know that how you will have to work, even if it is a printed material, then also how you will take your notes from articles that you are reading. That was very well presented here. A good example of the process of writing for the research that you have displayed here. I would request the participants, if they want to ask anything or if they have any specific questions, then you can also share, or you can either put it in a chat or you can come live and ask the question. In yesterday's session, there was one question was asked that if we are working on a topic or we have an idea for the topic, but if there is no material available, and you today gave a very good example of that. Like, for example, if somebody is told that work on bandits, well, the first idea will come in the mind is that where is the material? I will not find anything. Where are the books? And then you slowly and steadily showed that there is so many things on bandit. There are popular culture, popular Netflix series, from there to classical works, so many documentaries of 19th century, and in all languages you find bandits. So that's why that when somebody says about an idea, we find that there is nothing on that. But as soon as we start exploring, we find not many things about that. So that also was a very interesting. Yes, yeah.
I don't believe that there is any topic in this world where there is no material. One misconception that many times researchers have is they think there should be articles based on their topic itself. If I am doing research on bandits in Chinese literature, they are thinking that they should find books and articles on Chinese literature based on those books, but that is not the case. If you find material on any other literature or even on terrorism, the research comes in when you apply those ideas in your area. That is where your creativity comes. That is how you create new ideas. You can't originally create new information. You can only apply it in new contexts. So there is no material, no topic in the world, I think, where there is no material. Absolutely full of material this world is. The only thing is your creative thinking is what should find the material in new ways.
Exactly, that was very interesting. So very well, that example that you used was also very novel. People are rarely working on that area. I hope many of
the topic.
Yes, yeah,
that's why I talked about the topic.
Yes, yeah, that was good. So I hope many students may be inspired, those who are still in masters and they want to work on this area, so they can think of. It's a very interesting topic.
At least 10 topics can be made from this thing. At least 10
yes,
topics related to
can make a dozen of topics. Yeah. So various ways you have shot that one topic, and you can see from so many angles. The same topic can be viewed from variety of ways also there. Okay, anybody has any questions to be asked? Then you can ask your question. You are very clear. You made all the points very clear. So I don't think they might have any confusion yet. You can keep on watching the chat box if anybody is.
Pooja is saying enlightening lecture, ma'am. You cleared the map. How to work practically. Thank you. Tamsa Pandya is saying, ma'am, I don't have any question, but I'm confused about literature view regarding any dissertation. Should be historical or from a current scenario. I would personally say that history is important in every topic. Some central university professors, etc., look down upon history, but history is definitely important, I would say. In every topic, you should have a historical perspective and also a contemporary perspective. As I said, even if you're talking about Shakespeare, when I was doing my research in Canada, I found that people there are still working on Shakespeare for PhD. In India, we don't allow people to work on Shakespeare and all those old people, old writers. But there, and I asked my supervisor, why is it on Shakespeare? What is left on Shakespeare? And my supervisor said, it is not Shakespeare that matters. It is what you are how you are looking at it that matters. Your perspective should be contemporary. So even if you're working on Shakespeare or 19th century, your perception should be contemporary. You should be applying cultural studies and very recent theory there, very recent perceptions there. So history and contemporary sense, as Sir said, that should be a mixture, and it is a combination that is important. When you write a dissertation on Shakespeare, it should not be like a 17th century researcher writing the dissertation. It should be like a 21st century researcher writing the dissertation, isn't it? So both should be there, history and contemporaneity.
Okay, anybody else? Any questions? Then you can still ask. It was very clear, very good. Practically, it will be very helpful to all the scholars. And we have recorded also. So many of them will watch the recordings to come again to these topics when they are writing also there.
Are you putting it in YouTube, sir?
Yeah, I will upload on YouTube, and I will share a link with you also.
Yeah.
Share a link.
Because some students who are doing research who are approaching me will also benefit if they listen.
They all will be benefited from this. Yeah, it will be very useful. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, thanks a lot for sparing a time for